Imagine for a moment that you are a wave. You rise from the vast expanse of the ocean, lifted by forces you do not fully understand, and for a brief shimmering instant you crest against the sky. You feel the wind on your surface, the sun warming your peak, and in that moment of rising you believe yourself to be separate. You believe yourself to be a wave, distinct from the water around you, traveling toward a shore where you will inevitably crash and disappear. And as you approach that shore, as you feel yourself beginning to curl and break, there is fear, there is the sense of ending, there is the conviction that when you crash upon those rocks, when you dissolve into foam and scatter across the sand, you will cease to exist. But here is the question that changes everything, the question that the philosopher Alan Watts spent his life inviting us to consider. What if the wave never dies? What if the crash is not an ending but a return? What if what you call death is simply the ocean, remembering that it was never anything other than ocean all along? This video is inspired by the profound insights of Alan Watts, a man who spent decades exploring the deepest questions of human existence, and who had a remarkable gift for making the incomprehensible feel suddenly obvious. And I want to make you a promise right now, at the beginning of our time together. By the end of this exploration, I will share with you a single insight, a shift in perspective so fundamental that it has the power to dissolve the fear that may have followed you your entire life. Not through belief, not through hope, but through a direct seeing of something you have always known but perhaps never allowed yourself to fully recognize. And alongside that insight, I will offer you a simple practice, something you can carry with you from this moment forward, a way of touching this truth not as an idea but as a lived experience. So stay with me, let the words wash over you, and let us walk together towards something that has been waiting for you far longer than you know. We begin, as we must, with death. That word we avoid in polite conversation, that shadow we push to the edges of our awareness, that uninvited guest we pretend will never arrive at our door. We have constructed entire civilizations around the avoidance of this single reality. We build monuments and write books and accumulate possessions and chase achievements, and beneath all of it, if we are honest, is the desperate hope that somehow, through all this doing, we can outrun the one thing that cannot be outrun. But what if our terror is based on a misunderstanding? What if the thing we are running from is not what we think it is? Consider how you came to believe in death in the first place. No one is born with the concept. A newborn does not lie in its crib contemplating mortality. The idea is given to you, handed down through language and culture, and the well-meaning warnings of adults who themselves received the same inheritance. You are told that things end. You watch a pet die, or a grandparent disappears, or a character in a story meets their final scene, and slowly, through repetition and reinforcement, a belief takes root. The belief that you are a separate thing, a bounded entity, a self that began at some point and will end at another point. And from this belief all fear flows. But let us look more closely at this self that supposedly ends. Where exactly is it? You might say it is your body, but your body is not the same body it was 10 years ago. Every cell has been replaced, every atom exchanged. The body you had as a child is not the body you have now, and yet you persist in the feeling of being you. So you are not simply your body. Perhaps then you are your memories, your accumulated experiences, the story you tell about who you are. But memories are notoriously unreliable. They shift and change, fade and reconstruct themselves. The memory you have of your 10th birthday is not the same memory you had at 15, and it is not the same memory you will have at 80. Memories are not fixed things. They are more like rivers than like stones. So you are not simply your memories either. Perhaps you might say you are your thoughts, your inner voice, the constant narration that accompanies your days. But have you ever watched your thoughts? Have you ever sat quietly and observed the parade of mental activity that marches through your awareness? If you have, you may have noticed something peculiar. Thoughts arise and dissolve without your permission. They come from somewhere you cannot locate, and they vanish to somewhere equally mysterious. You do not think your thoughts any more than you beat your heart or grow your hair. Thoughts happen. They are events, not possessions, so you are not your thoughts either. Then what are you? What is this self that is supposedly so terrified of ending? The deeper you look, the more it seems to recede, like a mirage that shimmers on the horizon and disappears when you approach. And this is not a failure of investigation. This is the discovery. The self you are afraid of losing is not a thing at all. It is a process, a pattern, a dance. And dances do not die. They simply change rhythm. Here is one of the great insights that Alan Watts offered to the world, and I invite you to consider it, not as a belief to adopt, but as a possibility to explore, what you call yourself. What you experience as this intimate sense of being you is not separate from the rest of existence. It is a temporary focusing of the same energy that swirls galaxies into being and coaxes flowers from seeds and sends lightning crackling across summer skies. You are not a thing in the universe. You are what the universe is doing in this particular place at this particular time, in the same way that a wave is what the ocean is doing at a particular location on its surface. And just as the wave does not come into existence from nothing and does not go out of existence into nothing, neither do you. The wave is the ocean the whole time. It was ocean before it rose, it is ocean while it crests, and it is ocean after it falls. The only thing that changes is the form, the shape, the temporary configuration, and what is true of the wave is true of you. You are life itself, temporarily configured as this particular pattern, this particular perspective, this particular experience. And when the pattern changes, as all patterns do, life does not end, only the form transforms. Think about what happens when you fall asleep at night. Every single night, without exception, you experience something remarkably similar to what you imagine death to be. Your sense of self dissolves, your awareness of being you fades away. For hours there is no experience of being a separate person, no narrative, no identity, no fear, no desire. And yet when morning comes, here you are again. You do not experience this nightly dissolution as death. You do not mourn yourself each evening or celebrate your resurrection each morning. Why not? Because deep down, beneath all the concepts and fears, you know that what you are does not depend on the continuity of your waking experience. Something persists that is prior to the person, prior to the story, prior to the self. And here is where it becomes even more interesting. Not only do you survive this nightly death, you actually find it restorative. You need sleep. You crave it. After a long day of being somebody, of maintaining the exhausting performance of selfhood, there is profound relief in letting it all go. Sleep is not something you endure, it is something you seek. And this tells us something crucial about the nature of existence. The dissolution of the separate self is not a tragedy, it is a rest, it is a return, it is the ocean welcoming the wave back into its depths. But our fear persists, you might say. Even if intellectually we can follow this reasoning, there remains that visceral terror, that gut-level resistance to the idea of our own ending. And this is true. The fear is real, but the question we must ask is, what exactly is afraid? When you examine the fear of death closely, you will find that it is always a fear about the future. It is a fear of something that has not happened yet, and in a very real sense never will happen to you. You will never experience your own death. This is not a comforting platitude. This is a simple fact of how experience works. Think about it. Every experience you have ever had, every moment of your entire life has been an experience of being alive. You have never experienced being dead. You have never experienced non-existence. It is not possible to experience non-experience. And so the thing you are afraid of, the thing that keeps you awake at night and casts its shadow across your days, is something that by definition cannot be experienced. You are afraid of an idea, a concept, a thought about the future. You are not afraid of death itself, because death itself is not something that can be encountered. What you encounter, always and only, is life, this moment, this breath, this awareness. And when you see this clearly, something remarkable happens. The fear does not disappear exactly, but it loses its grip. It becomes obvious that you have been running from a ghost, hiding from a shadow, fighting with a phantom. The death you feared was never real. It was a story, a projection, a thought about a future that exists only in imagination. And in the present moment, which is the only moment there ever is, you are utterly alive. You have always been alive. You will always be alive. Because the present moment is always now, and now is always alive. Let me offer you another way of seeing this that Alan Watts was particularly fond of. Consider a flame. A candle burns, and you see a flame dancing at the top of the wick. Now you know that the flame is not a thing, it is a process. It is the visible edge of a chemical reaction, the place where wax becomes heat, and light, and carbon dioxide and water vapor. The flame does not exist as a separate entity, it is what burning looks like. And yet, when the candle is extinguished, when the flame disappears, we do not say that the flame has died in any meaningful sense. The energy that was the flame has not been destroyed, it has transformed, it has become heat in the air, light that traveled outward, molecules that joined the atmosphere. The flame was never a thing that could die. It was a pattern, a process, a temporary form of something that is always and everywhere present. You are like the flame. What you experience as your life is the visible edge of something much vaster, the place where the energy of the universe temporarily takes this particular form, this particular pattern, this particular experience. And when the pattern changes, as it must, the energy does not end. It cannot end. Energy is neither created nor destroyed, it only transforms. And what you are at the deepest level is that energy, that awareness, that aliveness that is taking this particular shape right now. There is a fear that persists even here, and it is worth addressing directly. It is the fear of loss of self, the fear that even if something continues, it will not be me. I will not be there to experience it. My particular perspective, my unique viewpoint, my individual story will be gone. And this fear reveals something important about what we truly value. We are not just afraid of non-existence. We are afraid of not being special, not being separate, not being this particular configuration of memories and preferences and opinions that we have spent a lifetime curating. But consider this. The self you are so afraid of losing is already lost, constantly, continuously. You are not the same self you were a year ago. You are not the same self you were this morning. The person who started watching this video is not the same person who is watching now. Change is not something that happens to the self. Change is what the self is. You are a river, not a stone. You are a process, not a thing. And resisting this, trying to hold on to a fixed identity, is like trying to stop a river by grabbing a handful of water. The very act of grasping causes what you are trying to hold to slip away. What would it mean to relax into this truth? What would it feel like to stop clutching at an identity that was never solid in the first place, and instead to flow with the constant transformation that you already are? This is not resignation. This is not giving up. This is freedom. This is the recognition that you have been trying to protect something that does not need protection, trying to preserve something that cannot be preserved, trying to save something that was never in danger. The transformation that you call death is not different in kind from the transformation that is happening right now in this very moment. Right now, cells in your body are dying and being born. Right now, thoughts in your mind are arising and dissolving. Right now, the pattern that is you is shifting and changing in ways too subtle to perceive, but absolutely real. You are dying and being reborn continuously. Death is not a future event, it is a present reality. And yet here you are, alive, aware, experiencing. The continuity you fear losing was never continuous. The permanence you cling to was never permanent. And realizing this, you are free. Let us pause here for a moment, because this is important. I am not asking you to believe any of this. Belief is cheap. Belief is just another thought, another concept, another mental position. What I am inviting you toward is something more direct than belief. I am inviting you to look at your own experience right now, and to see for yourself what is actually true. Are you the same person you were 10 years ago? Are you the same person you were this morning? Is there a fixed, unchanging self anywhere in your experience, or is there just this flowing, shifting, dancing aliveness that temporarily takes the shape of you? And here is where we arrive at the insight I promised you at the beginning. The shift in perspective that has the power to dissolve fear at its root. It is not a complicated idea. In fact, it is almost embarrassingly simple, and that simplicity is precisely why we miss it. We are looking for something grand and mysterious, and we overlook the obvious truth that is staring us in the face. The insight is this: you have never experienced anything other than this present moment. Every memory you have is a present experience of remembering. Every anticipation you have is a present experience of anticipating. Every fear you have about the future is a present experience of fearing. There is no past that you can actually visit. There is no future that you can actually enter. There is only now, endlessly renewing itself, eternally present, always already here. And in the now, there is no death. There cannot be. Death is a concept about time, about a transition from one state to another, from alive to not alive. But in the present moment, which is the only moment there is, such a transition is impossible. You are alive now. You have always been alive now. Now is all there ever is, and now does not die. It transforms, yes, it changes constantly. But the nowness of now, the aliveness of this present moment, is eternal. Not eternal in the sense of lasting forever in time, but eternal in the sense of being outside of time altogether, prior to time, the source from which the experience of time emerges. This is what the mystics of every tradition have been pointing toward. This is what Alan Watts spent his life trying to communicate in 1,000 different ways. You are not a temporary being who will one day cease to exist. You are the eternal now, temporarily taking the form of this particular experience, this particular perspective, this particular pattern, and when the pattern changes, as it will, the now does not end. It cannot end. It is the ground of all experience, the space in which all forms arise and dissolve, the awareness that is aware of all awarenesses. And so we come to the practice I promised you, the simple thing you can carry with you from this moment forward. It is not complicated, it does not require any special posture or technique or belief. It asks only this: pause right now, and notice that you are aware. Not aware of something in particular, but simply aware. There is an awareness here, reading these words, hearing these sounds, feeling these feelings, and that awareness is not located in time, it is not moving from past to future. It is simply here, now, present. Breathe and feel the breath, not as something happening to you, but as something you are. Feel the aliveness in your body, the tingling in your fingers, the warmth in your chest. This aliveness is not separate from the aliveness of the universe. It is the same aliveness that beats every heart, that grows every tree, that spins every galaxy. It is taking the shape of you right now, in this moment, and it will continue to take shapes long after this particular pattern has transformed into something new. Rest in this awareness, even for a moment. Notice that it is always here, always available, always welcoming. It does not judge, it does not fear, it simply is, and you are it. You have always been it, you will always be it, because there is nothing else to be. This is the transformation that death points toward. Not an ending, but an expansion. Not a loss, but a return. Not a tragedy, but a homecoming. The wave crashes upon the shore and discovers in its dissolution that it was ocean all along. And the ocean does not grieve for the wave. The ocean celebrates the wave, because the wave was how the ocean got to experience itself as form, as movement, as the temporary thrill of rising and falling. You are the ocean, pretending to be a wave, and death is simply the moment when the pretending ends. Not because you are destroyed, but because you are revealed. The mask falls away, and what remains is what was always there, what could never be threatened, what was never born and therefore cannot die. If this exploration has touched something in you, if you have felt even a glimmer of recognition in these words, I invite you to leave a comment below. Tell me what shifted in your perception. Tell me what question arose. Tell me what you are feeling right now, in this moment. Your sharing is not just for you. It is a gift to everyone who will come after, everyone who will read your words and feel less alone in their own inquiry. And if you know someone who is carrying the weight of this fear, someone who lies awake at night worried about their own ending, or grieving the loss of someone they love, please share this video with them. Not to convince them of anything, but to offer them another way of seeing, another possibility to consider. Sometimes a single shift in perspective is all it takes to transform a lifetime of suffering into a lifetime of peace. Subscribe to this channel if you want to continue this exploration together. There is so much more to discover, so many more insights from Alan Watts and others who have walked this path before us. In our next video, we will explore the illusion of control, the strange freedom that comes from realizing you were never in charge in the first place, and the peace that waits on the other side of surrender. But for now, let this be enough. Let this moment be complete. You are here, alive, aware. The wave is cresting, and the sun is warm, and the ocean is vast beyond imagining, and you are all of it. You have always been all of it. And when the wave returns to the sea, you will discover what you have secretly known all along. There was never anything to fear. There was only life, endlessly transforming, eternally present, forever becoming itself in new and wondrous forms. Rest in this, trust in this, be this. Because this is what you are, and what you have always been, and what you will always be. World without end.